I got a DUI, got arrested. 3 months exactly on the date following that, I got my second DUI. My mom bailed me out. She was like, "What is going on?" It was about a guy. It's like, "I knew that. We already knew you're gay." I told my dad. The only thing he responded to me was, "I don't want to see it." He's all cool with me now where I'm at. That just makes me proud, just to know that you're accepting me for who I am. How I got into the news was somebody had spray painted Prince Kuhio's statue in Waikiki. I sent that along with my website to every single email address I can find on all the news websites. And I told them, I think that if there's more Hawaiian education integrated in newscasts, this may not have happened, because that boy would have known who Prince Kuhio was. He would have known it's because of him that he's on Hawaiian Homestead. And the community's learning more about themselves for free, and I get a job. Main person that has inspired me up to this point has been my Tutu. What Tutu has done was help to give me validity to the public and more credibility. Because if I tell a story and I have a source who's 108 at the time, that's my source. Aside from that, she's always just been a part of me. I always passed by this house that had a car in the front yard. I asked Tutu, "Could I borrow money from you?" She did. When I graduated, Tutu gave me an envelope, and in the envelope was $2,000 that I paid her back, and she was just saving it. Just the fact that I'm 36 years down the road, how fortunate I am to have my great-grandmother to be with me all those years. Jeff Goldblum said a quote. It was just pretty much saying, the fact that I know I have a role in this community inspires me to give more. I want to give everything that I give before I die. And if it's this candle, I want this candle to glow as bright as it can before I pass it on to the next generation. That's kind of what I feel like I want to do. I finally know what my Kūleana is. I'm a storyteller and use my position as best as I can. Be a positive influence in the way that I think a positive influence is. And to me, God is my backbone.
Greater Good Radio, connect, learn, heal, and grow, is brought to you by Brain Gain Hawaii, a boutique executive recruiting, career development, and coaching firm. Learn more at braingainhi.com. Welcome to Greater Good Radio. Today we're here with our guest, Kamaka Pili, who is the host of Aloha Authentic and all-star on KHON.
Yo.
All-star.
I'll pay you for that.
Okay. But you're like a multi-hyphenate, I guess is what, you're doing so many things. Like, how would you introduce yourself?
Weatherman and reporter with KHON2, and I'm the host and producer of Aloha Authentic.
Okay. For the Aloha Authentic, like, how did that come about? Because that's where I saw you initially, the clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
And in particular, the one on Pu'uhonua. Because I've been doing quite a bit of just my own research on Pu'uhonua. I'm fascinated with that concept.
Well, it's interesting that this is, 2025. We're stepping into the 11th year of Aloha Authentic. We started actually in 2014. So we just made that 10-year mark. But with Aloha Authentic on KHON, it's only been a few years. We're in our 5th season right now. So it actually started with Olelo Community Media. And it was a time when I was more in an entrepreneurial phase and I was more of an artist and selling my own products and stuff. I was part of an organization, and the association was called Hawaii Culture and Retail Association at the time. And an opportunity came about when I was at a craft fair. A lady from Olelo came and she was listening to all the stories of my products. And she was like, "Would you ever share these stories on TV?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I never knew there was an option. Yeah, I would try and see how far I can go." And that lo and behold, that's where Aloha Authentic came about. The original launch of it was to give attention to local artists and give them the opportunity to tell their stories and hopefully expand their exposure. But as time went on, my interests were more culture. So I started to bring in more of a culture aspect to it. And then when seasons changed, the association is now called Native Hawaiian Arts and Culture Expo, which is something that I carry now. And it kind of just evolves with the time. I don't know what's to come tomorrow. So I've kind of just gotten used to going with the trades and kind of going with the flow. Fortunately, I got into KHON. K-High, the second channel that came about a few years ago, that was a brand new concept. So they were looking for new content. And I was just saying, "Oh, well, I have a show that I've been doing on Olelo. Would it be something that I can bring here?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, let's try it out." And it's kind of just been going with the flow since then. So it started off with a small little thing. And I guess just with opportunities and with all the different things going on in my head, it was a means for me to kind of evolve it into what it is today, but more so express myself. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to see that people actually listen, because as a kid, it didn't sound like that or it didn't feel like that. But people are actually listening to what I have to share now. And that's really exciting and inspiring.
So if you had to share just one story from that whole piece of Aloha Authentic that would give us like good context into what it truly means at like the energetic and spiritual level of it, what would that story be?
Oh.
Like I want to feel it.
Well, the main concept of Aloha Authentic, the whole idea from start to now is for our visitors that when you go home, you are sharing the stories from Hawaiians as the storytellers, not the stories that you're going to go back home and share being from the hotel that you paid to stay there. You know, the travel, the airlines and marketing and advertising and ABC stories, because that's not the most accurate. And for somebody who has been in Waikiki dancing for years, and I know what it feels like when people come up to me. I remember this one story. I came off stage dancing and literally coming off to catching my breath. And this lady comes running from nowhere, out of nowhere. We're at the Ilikai Hotel and she comes up with her state ID and she's like, I just got my state ID. I'm a Hawaiian now. And just that, like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're really excited, but can I just tell you that you're not a Hawaiian? And let me explain to you why. So the idea was there's so much misinformation out there. How can I be able to share with you a more accurate persona and description and image of what Hawaii is in our point of view, and allow that to be the little pebble that you throw into this pool back at home, and that's the ripple effect that expands. Because if I allow you to go back and share inaccurate information, I'm just as wrong for not saying something as that information is. That's how I look at it. So Aloha Authentic really was, no matter if it's very simple in terms of what Hawaii looks like and what you can experience, to more of the deeper kauna and that the deeper layers, the hidden meanings behind things. It's more so give the time to sit down and learn a little bit more. You know, and nowadays it's much more culture and much more revolving around historical educational sense, because that's my passion. And through that, I can start to tap into the spiritual realm a little bit more. But then you kind of find that, especially with visitors or anybody who's not on the same, I wouldn't say same level as me, but you know, they may not know as much of what I'm speaking of, that you start very slowly and you don't want to throw too much at somebody because it becomes a lot more intimidating. They get turned off. They get stress and anxiety because they may not know what you're talking about. You're talking really fast. And so there's a way that I try to build of how can you get this kind of story, no matter if it's very general or very spiritual, but get it across successfully. And I feel like we just have to sit down and talk story. Sit down, talk story in a way that's understandable, like a university 101. And from there, I may not know more the detailed information, but then hopefully through my relationships and people that I know, oh, well, you can go speak with so-and-so if you want to find out more about hula or canoe paddling or whatever it is. So my approach to this is just a unintimidating, very comfortable environment to be able to learn.
So kind of like a connector.
I like to think of myself as a bridge. I only say that because one of my business mentors through that entrepreneurial season of mine, and it's always stuck in my mind, don't ever burn a bridge, no matter how angry or disgruntled you can get with somebody, because you never know in the future when you may need to walk over that bridge again. There's so many things, because then now I'm thinking of Pono Shim, who has recently passed. But
that's my buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I only spoke with him, a little for a short amount of time in the later years of his life. But what is your aloha response question to me has always stuck with me. And I think about what is your aloha response because I still have the angry Hawaiian on the inside who can be so quick to point and judge, oh, howling people this, tourist this, and angry this. But what is the most aloha response that you can give? I mean, if I'm thinking of how I heard it from Pono Shim, aloha, the first A is akahai, to be as gentle as you can in a space. Act like if you have white gloves on your hand, no matter what you put your hand on, you're never leaving a fingerprint and you leave spaces better than when you got there. Or aloha as an L, lokahi, being united. Like if we're sitting at this table, how can all of us achieve
unbroken?
Yeah.
Right.
How can we all achieve either that relationship, or if we're all trying to work on a project, how can we get the center of this table being, from all of our perspectives, which I think just being able to work with one another is a whole art within itself. Like the art of lokahi is, I think, the biggest struggle for all of us. I mean, especially in the world today. Olu, comforting and kind. And it's comforting as if you're holding this brand new baby and you're as gentle as you can be with this brand new baby, but you also have this duality of strength that as much as you're caressing this baby, you're strong enough that you're not going to drop the baby. So there's that duality of ku and hina. And then you have H and ha'a, and it's humility. And I remember Pono Shim, the event I was watching him express this was he kind of just let out all his breath and he was, and he took this deep breath in. And the way that I understood it was that breath in, that action of filling yourself up, never the state of being full, but the action of always trying to fill yourself up. That is being humble. That is ha'aha'a. And the last A, ahonui, patience. And it's not just patience waiting if this moment, I don't know if this moment's going to happen. It may not. I'm just going to wait. But ahonui compared to that is, I know the moment's going to happen and I have the faith it will happen. It may not be in my lifetime. It could be in next generations, but that moment that I'm trying to achieve will happen. And that's ahonui. So you're always with this faith contributing to your work. And for me, all of that, when we speak of what is your aloha response, you tapping into all of those as just an example, but there's so much more layers to what we're talking about aloha. So for me, if I can be the angry Hawaiian, oh, haole this, haole that, or my aloha response is, okay, if you may not know, on innocently ignorant stage and a presence, it's my responsibility to educate you. So I can be the angry Hawaiian to just point fingers, or I can be that educational Hawaiian who has the anger on the inside, but I'm trying to find a positive means to express it. And Aloha Authentic has been the result of the angry Hawaiian on the inside trying to find a positive way moving forward.
So which of the Hawaiian words in aloha is most meaningful to you?
Oh, patience and humility are the two virtues that I am the worst at, but I connect to the most. I mean, driving on the roadway every single day, it pushes my patience. And I don't know, that's why I kind of keep going back to this world today. Just within the past few years, since the pandemic, the world has gotten so crazy, but I think it's also a mindset and it's a thought process and it's this thinking pattern. And when we talk about aloha, I think it's not just expression, but aloha is a mindset too. So there's a quote that I've seen recently: the more that I learn about people, the more I like my dog. But so, going out into this world, finding how much lack of patience I have, or lack of humility, then I try to use those opportunities driving as an example of how to strengthen my patience, because there's so many different things that can make me angry.
Well, you're reporting the news too. I mean, that's like a collection of
the more
like
that I meet people, the more I like my dog.
Bummer stuff, right?
Just joking.
That's like all the bad news. I don't see how that makes it any easier.
Yeah, it could be very hard. And there are times where I contemplate sometimes like, maybe I should just get out of the news. I don't like to be always around the bad energy. But fortunately, I don't really work with the bad energy. Bad stories is not really my thing. So I kind of do more fun stories aside from the cultural stuff. But I like that because I feel, and just like on social media, where I feel we have to, as much bad stories are out there, we need just as much good stories to balance it off.
I kind of feel like when I was watching your videos is that through the programming of that Aloha Authentic, it's like that's your expression.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Your way to kind of express who you are and what you're about and so on in a creative way.
I'm glad that comes across because I really don't know what I was going to do at first. I mean, the whole social media aspect is more recent, and it's trying to find ways of how what I share on the news, which in my mind, older people. I was never a child and watched the news. So I'm
considered elderly now.
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
I'm choosing my words wisely.
Elderly, like 50 and up. And I was like, bro, you just call me elderly? Like, what the heck?
If there's only two ages, there's an elderly and the youngerly.
I don't know when I'm officially kupuna, but I don't know. I think I might be there.
I just trip out when kids come and run up to me when they see me in public and they're like, oh, I know who you are, uncle. And first of all, I'm not uncle. Second of all, I never watched the news when I was your age. So I just always thought, okay, social media is where the kids are at. How do I take the content I put on the news and take it to social media? And over time, I mean, there's so many aspects because as a young boy, I was the quiet one. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I was, picked on and all that kind of things. I can only say it's a God and a praise report the older I got. And social media, as much as people may have negative connotations about it, and I do too, but social media is what pushed me to kind of get to the point.
I wouldn't
where
have found you otherwise. I don't even have TV.
So it's really funny that I am, even just being so transparent as I think that I am now, being gay. I never spoke about that before. And it's only in recent years where I'm being much more transparent, but I'm realizing when you're more transparent, other people connect with you more because even if they don't say it.
You think it's transparent or it's expressing vulnerability? Like the option to potentially be injured.
See, I had to Google what vulnerable actually meant because that comment has been coming to me a lot more recently. And it's cool that people see it like that. I don't ever, that's just
because transparency could be like, I don't like you. And like, I'm being transparent. That doesn't necessarily make it more connecting. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Right? It's almost like I'm coming to you with my authentic self. That's right, which is like Aloha Authentic, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is who I really am, and let me express myself into the world as that, and hope that it's embraced. And if it gets embraced, then it's connecting.
Yeah. I'm glad that you got that, because another big aspect of my life had been depression and mental health, which only recent years I'm starting to hear much more people speak of it out loud.
Yeah, because plenty of people don't talk about it.
Yeah. And I think by me expressing the vulnerability, I guess, of me, I'm connecting with more people, because I think they deal with the same exact issues and they can be just as vulnerable, but they don't. You know, and I think if I'm on this platform and being on TV, which I never expected to be, it's a total God thing. I feel like, you know what, I'm going to make the best of this as I can. And I could either go to work and just do my job for me, or I can go to work and use it as an opportunity to be a part of this community and get my word out further and much more.
So, you know, when you keep saying like it's a God thing, like what's the story behind that? Like, what is the actual, this is where I was, this has happened, and boom. You know what I mean?
I'm in the part of my life now where I understand that I'm only here because it's a God thing. Because I would not be able to, first of all, with my own skills and abilities, I'm not a talker. I don't speak proper English. I don't speak Hawaiian very good at all. I'm really bad at socializing. And people, they don't believe me when I say that. When I'm talking to people, like if I have something
So
to
you're talking
talk
past
about,
tense or what?
past
Because
tense-
you're talking as if it's your identity. But it's not really your identity.
well, it's
It's like a past tense kind of.
That's the past tense. But then the older I'm getting, the more I'm realizing and connecting, and like I know it's God. Before, I felt like I'm trying to let me control my life. I'm going to try to do it all on my own. In more recent years, it's kind of been, you know what? Give it to God. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And if you have a problem with me, it's your problem.
But what's like
it's
a
not me.
mo'olelo around that? Like something pivotal. You know what I mean?
There's been
Where you
so
know.
many. There's really not one thing, because I feel like where
connect
I'm at
them then.
now, it's just been a journey. My whole life has been a journey.
Or connect them. You know what I mean? I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand the path.
I just feel like this job, it's really gotten me out of that past tense me. Putting myself in front of a camera, which I would never was the person to be in front of the camera. For the most part, I was always behind. I was always the quiet one. I would do my stuff. I didn't really, again, put myself in front of public. So I have old friends.
Up until when?
Up until getting this job, pretty much.
You mean so you're on Olelo and all that, and then you still
was
still
very
felt
quiet,
like you
yeah.
still identified with that. And
Because
then,
when I go to Olelo, it's just me. There was nobody else there. It was all I controlled it. And so even those who were there, other than just the one person from Olelo there, it was really me. And putting it on TV, the good thing about Olelo was they didn't give you statistics. They didn't give you, so I didn't know who was watching me.
yeah, no pressure, right?
No pressure. So I could talk to the camera and I didn't have to worry about you barking back at me, because I didn't know who you were. If you didn't like me, turn the channel. And at that time, I'm
You
like,
on the news, it's like, bro, I don't like your eyebrows or something. You know what I mean? Like, what's up with
just
your
the other-
shirt?
last month, because somebody
up,
gave
you
me a
know?
tie, but the tie is really long. And I wore the tie and it was like a model, because it was going way past down my crotch.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I got this email. Oh, this is, and they sent me this whole diagram of how to properly wear a tie. And I'm like, come on, bro. Like, I'm wearing this tie because it's super long and somebody gave it to me, so I want to wear it. But
Funny how people, you know, and I guess myself is included to give unsolicited advice all the time. I mean, I do it too, so whatever. But it's like, I never ask. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, but women, I gotta say, that was the first time I ever got that. 7 years I've been in the news. Women get that all the
Yunji was
time.
telling me she's getting
They get
blasted.
all the time, and I feel really bad for them. But even more so, it's like, good on you that they don't allow it to bother them. And when I first got this job, so coming from like
I'm not sure if it doesn't bother them. I think maybe they have to just push through it. You know what I mean?
I mean, it bothered
yeah.
to the point where it's going to disrupt you,
Yeah.
and disrupt your work. And for me, coming from more of a hula realm, because stepping into this news, I was doing Mary Monarch, I was in all these different organizations, and just being me and just kind of fluttering around and kind of experience and take in as much as I can from everywhere. When I got into the news, the hula mindset is you have one chance to do a good job. Your weather report, you have 2.5 minutes, it's live, you have no chance to, can I redo that again? So in a hula mindset, when you go on the Mary Monarch stage, you have one chance to do the best you can. So you got to make sure that first performance is the best. And in my mind, that's how I walked into it. And I remember telling this to my boss, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so hard on yourself." But I'm like, "Well, no, you have one
Christina?
chance." Yeah, Christina.
Okay,
Yeah. And she was just like, "You can't think like that." I'm like, "Oh, but that's how I was trained."
Pressure, right?
Pressure. So the anxiety was so much. I don't like to watch my first. If you turn in 7 years ago and watch my first year of reports. It was horrible. And I remember one auntie, she told me this after. She heard one of the DJs on the radio. What did they do? They find this guy on the side of the road or something? And she got so angry. She said she called the radio station and she was just giving them all this kind of rash. I think so. I really don't know.
Any kind.
But it was really funny. She told me that afterwards. And I'm like, oh, at that point, that would have bothered me. But then for 7 years in this, being in front of the camera, learning how to use my words better, someone who doesn't know how to speak proper English, where I get emails, you got to teach, as much as you teach people how to speak Hawaiian, you need to learn how to speak proper English.
Why?
Exactly. One time I was doing a story and I was saying humongous. Oh, this humongous fish was on the table. We were at this fish market. And the producer, when we got into commercial, she said, you just said humongous. I'm like, yeah, that's not a word. Yeah, it is. It's humongous. I've never heard the word being spoken as humongous. I mean, little things like that are local for us, I get criticized because in proper English, that's not how you speak.
The funny thing is that, I wonder how the hiring process worked on that one, if maybe, you're the DEI to an extent. If you're the DEI, then shouldn't you let the DEI be the DEI? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be the diverse one, kind of let you go unless it's just token or something.
Well, credit to the station and the management that they have allowed me to do that. It's the criticism coming from the public. And there's so many things I've come to realize for this job. One, everybody wants their voice to be heard. Everybody wants their voice to be heard. But two, as a Hawaiian, growing up pointing fingers to Haole people, being the angry Hawaiian, I realized majority of the people who grumble are Hawaiians. They're not Haole people. Haole people are actually very supportive and they want to know. And Hawaiians are the ones to point the fingers, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And it's really disheartening when you come to realize that, because then it's this whole I'm a crab syndrome where one crab is trying to come out of the bucket, but then the crab behind you only pulls you back down because they're jealous of you, or so it's Hawaiians are making it very hard for other Hawaiians to
not all
be
Hawaiians,
successful. Not all Hawaiians.
Yeah, it happens to be some. Then.
Yeah, so you have a box of strawberries. One strawberry that has mildew and film and everything. If you remove that one, all the rest of the strawberries will last longer. But if you keep that one strawberry, the mold will only spread fast.
I got something for you then. Okay, so if you had to address that group with a story only, what would it be?
That's a really good one.
And then I'm going to ask you for the kauna after that. So just letting you know up front, so you know it's not a surprise.
I mean, first and foremost, well, maybe Prince Kuhio. So Prince Kuhio was a full-blooded Hawaiian, given the title of Royal Prince from King Kalakaua after being hanai'd by his wife, Queen Kapi'olani. And from somebody who saw I look at her, his auntie, Queen Iliuokalani, saw her got illegally dethroned, attempted to try to fight to get her back onto the throne, got arrested in prison for doing so, never achieved what he tried to achieve, went out into an exile for like a year, traveled around the world, fought in like a South African war, came back, was then asked to run for Congress, did so as a Republican, and I believe he even went up against his brother, David Kawana Nakoa, who's running as a Democrat. I could be wrong, but I believe that's how it went. And then Prince Kuhio eventually won. So much so where then he became a U.S. delegate for 20 years, like 10 consecutive terms. He became a proud American, came back home, and every time he came back home, he shared how proud of American he was to his other Hawaiian people. That, I don't know how he did that. I don't know how you could be okay with that. But at the same time, throughout this 20 years and 10 terms, he worked with Haole people, played, and this is my mindset, he played the Haole game. He understood that his people were being displaced from their land. So you could either be ku'e and stay here being Hawaiian to try to fight, knowing that how things were going weren't working, unfortunately. So he played the white man's game, and he went through the American government and created the Hawaiian homelands, and through that to be able to get his people back on the land. So if we sit back and we just grumble, not playing the game and just expressing our anger and sitting back on the sofa watching the news, pointing our fingers, what is that going to do? Or if we can be like Prince Kuhio and step into this world of uncomfortable, and I can only imagine how much racism he had to deal with, being to this day, the only U.S. congressman of royal descent. I just think that's fascinating. But how successful he was in doing so, some people may not agree with me, but I look at him as a person like, you're a man way before your time. How could you have done that? But because you've done that, there are so many Hawaiians today who are beneficiaries of that. we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for a Hawaiian who put himself in an uncomfortable space for the betterment of his lahui. That to me is inspirational. So that's kind of what I say is like, you can either sit back as a Hawaiian and point fingers at me or any other Hawaiian or anybody else grumbling because of what they're trying to do, or you can actually take life by its horns and you can be one to try to create change as well by actually doing something. Because sitting back and pointing fingers is only going to get you so far. But if you actually try to contribute your efforts into a greater good, how much better could you be in society, your contributions to a lahui? So I look at Prince Kuhio as anybody wants to sit back and be lazy. Look at Prince Kuhio. What did he do? You know, maybe if we learn more about our history, we can use that to inspire us to move into the future.
So if there was a kauna in that, what would it be?
Kind of play the game. That's how I look at it. And people hadn't responded to me. I don't like that analogy. I have respect for that, but that's how I look at it. And that's how Aloha Authentic is a result of that. Because, I mean, I graduated in school with political science degree, never really did anything with it. But through that process of learning to achieve that degree, I've learned so much about the American politics and government that it's just astonishing. Like, you cannot tell me this is not a game. In a game in terms of strategy to achieve what you want to achieve. So I just feel like if we really want to keep our space in this world today as evolving as we continue to see it day by day in this world today, if we don't do anything, it's going to get lost. If we don't speak, it's going to be forgotten. And, you know, there's that phrase or the ideology that you take away a language, that's how you kill a people. And our language was very near to being extinct and silenced. But it was because people took up that responsibility on themselves to be a leader, not a follower. That's why we got to where we were then. Mahalo to the Hanani K. Trasks and to all of that era. Because if it wasn't for them to get everybody's attention, we wouldn't be where we are now. Fast forward to today, though, I don't think we have to be as loud as Haunani K. Trask and that era was. And my approach to this is if I were to be just as loud as her, I wouldn't be able to engage with as many people as I am now.
It's not your style.
It's not my style. It could be other people's style, but I just think it's just the era. Because now I think a lot of people are saying, oh, you're such an angry Hawaiian.
Could be if that's kind of their expression. You know what I mean? Could be.
I just think in terms of a listener, not everybody will be as open to sit down and have a conversation the whole time. I feel you can turn a lot of people off right from the get-go and they're not going to listen to you from a certain point. So for me, that's my approach. So then my trick is, where is that line of being up to telling you what I want to tell you, but keeping it behind that line enough where I'm not going to discourage you from wanting to get off from this table and walk away. Because if we don't have a conversation, we never can move past an issue. I think whatever issue, how big or small, we have to talk story. Education has to be number one. And for me, I feel education, let's just talk story. I think a lot of us forget how can we just sit down and talk story? I think that's an element that a lot of us don't necessarily engage with.
So what is the driver under all of this? When you're expressing it, it just feels intense and important. So what is the driver under that would give us context to like
there's so
what
much,
is up?
But I mean, my Tutu, who had just recently passed in August, we're in March now. February 13th, 1916 was her birthday. Oh. So she passed just this past August at 108 and a half.
Wow.
You know, we add the halves when we're kids, not as adults, but when you get old, I feel you have to add that half back in because it means a lot. But my Tutu, I was blessed to have my Tutu in my entire life up to this point. And I'm 36 now. And 36 years of my Tutu's influence in my life has really made a mark for me from a small kid. And because growing up when my parents were working, Tutu raised us. So being around her has always kind of, I always give her the credit of, I guess, my interest now because I was always around that, at least from the stories that she would share. And then, as you get older, there's so many other people that start to influence you. And it could be a small influence that Pono Shim, I only spoke with him a short amount of time for a couple of years, I think. Mm-hmm. But the small conversations I've had with him, what is your aloha response? That has impacted me so much. And that is something that has inspired me to continue on. But I think the main person or the main thing that has inspired me up to this point has been my Tutu.
What's her name?
Marietta Luke Kama. Everybody knew her as Etta, but we knew her as Tutu.
So could you share a story about your Tutu that would give us a good understanding of who she was to
Oh
you?
yeah, I'm actually doing this new series called Tutu Tales,
Okay.
which has actually been, I've only done two, but people have been loving it. And I love it because I would not be where I'm at with the position I'm at if it wasn't for Tutu.
Okay.
And I say that because I think what Tutu has done was help to give me validity to the public and more credibility. Because if I tell a story and I have a source who's 108 or 100 or 99 at the time, I mean, that's my source. So she helped me to give credibility to the stories that I share. But Tutu has, aside from that, I mean, she's always just been a part of me. I mean, I'm wearing, even this necklace was my first Merry Monarch. Back in 2012, we made a lei with these kupe'e. And we had extra ones, so we made necklaces out of this.
It's a shell.
So this one, so it's a kupe'e shell.
Uh-huh.
And this was mine, but when I visited Tutu one time,
What is a kupe'e is what?
Kupe'e is like the
Like a opihi? Or
kind
like
of a mollusk or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you go on the shoreline and you see them stuck onto the rocks.
Oh.
And a lot of times you get all different kind. I think majority of times you go down, you can see they're small black ones. But these ones
Like
are
PPP.
bigger. Yeah, like PPP.
Yeah.
So these ones are just kind of like bigger ones. But so we made shells, made lei for Mary Monarch that year. So I made this one for Tutu. I gave it to her, and she would always wear it. Oh, she never took it off, always on her neck. And then as she was getting older, Tutu, she was very sharp to the very end, but it was at the very end when she really started to get more ornery, whatever that word is. And she had this fit one night, and this was a woven cordage. She cut it off for some reason, and then she put this on, and she knotted it up. And I don't know why. I guess she just was in a fit. But when she passed, my uncle, them who were taking care of her, they say, here, this, I think Tutu would want you to make the decision what she wanted to do with it. If I wanted to leave it with her in her casket, which I spoke to her. I was like, Tutu, I would give this to you, but I want to keep it for myself because I want your mana with me, you know? So this is something I always carry.
A story with your tutu that would give us a good idea of who she was to you.
Oh, there's just so much. Well, the last Tutu tale that I shared was just, you know, went to college in Hilo, and she lived in Hilo. And I was a freshman in college when I bought my first car. And heading to Tutu's house, I always passed by this house that had a car in the front yard. And it was a Honda Accord for $2,000. And I just wanted a car. I spoke to my mom and I said, do you think if I asked Tutu, she would lend me some money? And she's like, you might as well just ask her. So I asked her, Tutu, there's this car on a few streets down, $2,000. Could I borrow money from you and I pay you back every month? So she did. And Tutu was one, she always hid her cash under her pillow or, you know, something in her room. So she went, she got me $2,000. She said, here, go pay for it. So I went to the house. I was so excited. I bought the car, went back to college, to my dorms. And it was back in the parking lot when I realized the car didn't have a radio and the car didn't have an AC. And you're in Hilo, it rains all the time. And I realized I bought a car with no AC. So every time it rains, I'm over there and I know what it feels like. You have to go wipe down the window because it's all foggy up and everything. Well, every month I would pay $100 to Tutu. But fast forward to 4.5 years when I graduated, Tutu gave me an envelope. And in the envelope was the $2,000 that I paid her back, and she was just saving it. So she gave it back to me. So Tutu paid for my first car and she gave me the $2,000. And it was just something like little things like that where it's a small little gesture. I mean, $2,000 now could seem like a little bit of money. It's also a lot of money, but it was just something to, yeah, just do it. No think twice kind of a thing. And knowing, I'm thinking that it wasn't my parents. It wasn't my grandma. It was my Tutu. And it's just so cool to see just the fact that I'm 36 years down the road and Tutu is always still there, and how fortunate I am to have my great grandmother to be with me all those years. It's just more so her essence.
And how about something that comes from your tutu that now lives in you?
Pork and beans. That was funny because Tutu has so many different influences, but the one dish that Tutu always taught me was pork and beans. And every time I cook it, it's funny because nobody really likes to eat it because they ate it so much when they grew up, like my dad. But I still love it. And so when I know I make pork and beans, I will have most of the pot for myself. But aside from that, I just think it's essence of me. I like to think, you know, I get the comment every so often, oh, you're very old school. You're very old spirit. And I take appreciation to that because I like to think that my Tutu and the things that she had inspired me, keep it. And it wasn't something that just goes in one ear and out the other, but it's more so it's this essence that I carry with me. When I show pictures of me and her, people do say that we look similar. But I don't know if there's really one. It's just because she's always been there.
So like what energetically does she carry that you carry now? does she pass on to you? Or Kuleana? What transfers from generation to your generation that will transfer on?
Well, you know, like she's just so many things. We were watching Kamehameha School's song contest one time, and she's listening to the boy give a speech. And somebody who took Hawaiian through high school, didn't make it very far, went into college, had a drop out of taking a Hawaiian studies degree because I couldn't pass Olelo. When I was a sophomore in college, I believe, I was going out with a girl from Ni'ihau, and her cousin were from Ni'ihau, and they were going to school. They were taking Hawaiian language 101. They failed. And all of this, so going back to song contest, listening to Tutu tell me, you hear that boy talking? Like, yeah. You know, we never talk like that. We just kind of like put words together and we make sentences like Pidgin, how we speak in Pidgin. That's how they spoke 108 years ago. Mm-hmm. So when we're thinking of how Hawaiian is being taught now, so structurally, if it's language, if it's history, it's not the only way. So when we're out and we're listening to somebody speak, oh, that person, it's not spoken like that. It's kind of ho'okano of us, a little bit, kind of like bring your head down a little bit, come down off of your high horse when you're trying to correct people so quickly, because that's what we learned in school. Because if you're speaking to my tutu and you thought she was speaking wrong, well, that's actually how she spoke, and she was raised speaking 108 years ago. You know, I spoke with Uncle Earl Kava'a, who's a native from Halawa, Molokai, who's a pure Hawaiian native speaker. Just, I'm so fortunate. I have 2 more episodes I get to speak with him. But even him, he's sharing of just the knowledge that they had back then and the knowledge now. One of the questions I asked him, is it Molokai or Molokai? And his response, being a Molokai native, his response, the highest level of the answer to that, it's not an issue. And because if you listen to him, he says Molokai, but a lot of people say Molokai. So I put this comment, or I shared this post on social media of his response, but you still have people responding to him, oh, that's not right. That's not right. But it's like, bro, we learned in school. We learned in school with this uncle learning from his life. Like, that's his life. He was raised like that. So it's a check on us that as much as, yeah, we're learning, we're becoming educated, but you also have to not think that you know it all, because let me open a whole nother side of knowledge of history and culture and language that you may not know and share that with you, because I'm getting it from this side. And I hope that makes sense. But for me, I realize now where I'm a Hawaiian who learned in school, where my tutu, Uncle Earl Kava'a, there's so many kupuna who also teach you, they learned from their life. And there's a difference when you look at it. So to me, when coming back to Tutu and just thinking of what she had inspired me, is keeping that open mind. And I think that's why, you know, it's when people grumble about one thing, oh, I can just go on and on about this. But I think when it comes down to Tutu, she just inspired me. It's the mindset that you step into a conversation with, to know that there's much more than what you know.
The coupe you have still has the knot? Or no?
Still has the...
Where she cut it?
No, because it was a whole nother cordage. So she cut the cordage, and the cordage is gone. But
what was going on when she cut it?
Like, I don't know. I wasn't there. Well, my auntie and my uncle then were just saying that when she was getting in her last months, very, you know, I think you get very angry, very...
Okay.
Because she wasn't really doing anything. Painful, stuff, like frustrated, because she couldn't do things for herself. And when she tries to do things for herself, she either couldn't do it or she's doing it wrong. So my auntie and my uncle would go in, oh, no, you know, let me help you. I don't want your help, kind of a thing. And then because you guys always do stuff for me, I can't do anything for myself, you know. And at that point, that's when she started to really get angry. So I think
she
it was
cut
in one of those.
And then tied it?
Yeah, so she cut it. And then I guess the next day, she got this and she just nodded herself to put another one on. So even my auntie, she's like, I don't know why she cut it for. I don't know why she only put this on it. So I think it was just one of those.
I wonder if possibly maybe she cut it because by cutting it and then putting it back together, that gave her agency.
Gave her something to do.
But, you know, the thing I'm thinking about, too, when I'm listening to this is, like, I'm always looking for patterns. And I don't know if there are or not. But if you talk about yourself being the bridge, right, you have a chasm of some sort, some type of separation, and then a piece that connects that too. And then for her in her last days, she creates a disconnection and then redoes the connection and so on. I don't know. Seems to be a theme. Mm. Potentially.
I mean, if looking at that, like it gave her something to do. Tutu
no, but it seems to be a theme that travels into you.
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Could be. Maybe that's why I didn't want to give it to her.
I don't even know if it's like ho'oponopono, but it's like the act of a repair. You know what I mean? The act of a connection that kind of moves through. I don't know. One of the main things is like when I watch your pieces online was more the spiritual aspect of where things were kind of going. That's why I keep probing and I keep going back to it, because one of the main reasons was like I'd like to talk to you in person to see like more where that's coming from.
Yeah, I'm glad you're pushing me for this because, I mean, if I can remember the phrase, but I just seen a quote, a video with Jeff Goldblum said a quote yesterday. It's a really, really long quote. I don't know. Actors, I guess they can memorize this whole paragraph. But in the quote, it was just pretty much saying, the fact that I know I have a role in this community inspires me to give more. And as much as I'm in this space, I want to give everything that I give before I'm done, before I die. So I want to be exhausted by the time that I'm dead. And if it's this candle, I want this candle to glow as bright as it can before I pass it on to the next generation. I had to watch it over because he talks really fast and I want to kind of like really consume it. But that's kind of what I feel like I want to do. And I mean, that's kind of what I always felt is I'm not just here to live, to let the days pass by and then to die. I think that's a boring way to spend your time on this earth. But going back to God as well, knowing that my purpose now, because as a little boy, I always wondered, what am I supposed to do here? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not good at anything. You know, I didn't know what my future was going to hold. But the more I learn about God, I learned that my role here is to help. One of your roles here is you assist and you help other people and allow God then to take care of yourself. So it's not a selfish position that you're in when you're living on this earth. So I feel like, well, as much as I'm here, I want to do as good as I can. And I mean, that's always been a driver for me. So I think once you start adding all these other layers on, I finally have a clearer vision of where I can go. I have much more relationships I've built over time. So now I have a lot more resources to tap into. So things that I've always questioned when I was a little kid. Why am I gay, first of all? You know, and why do I have to go through such an uncomfortable thing, not knowing what I'm going to do? Or how do I get through this world and people are going to give me so much criticism when it's not my choice? Like, why would somebody want to do that? Or then you get into depression. You know, that's why I'm much more outspoken about these things now, because when I was a kid, I didn't know it was called depression. I was just depressed. I was getting picked on all the time. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was a nerd and all those things. Getting into college, then I started to see a little bit more freedom, you know, and then there's just stepping stones that help me to get to the next phase. And I just think through all of that, now the camera's on me, people are actually listening to me now. I better use the best that I can. I use this as much as I can for the best influence I can leave in this world. Because if I'm going back to that Jeff Goldblum thought of, if I'm going to just give everything I got, I finally have a Kuleana. Before I didn't know what my Kuleana was. Now my Kuleana is I'm a storyteller. And maybe that's why I was doing so many things when I was a kid. And then when I got into my entrepreneurial phase, I was taking Lomi class, I was doing lauhala weaving, I was doing kapa for a little bit, going hula, I was doing all these things. And a lot of the times I wasn't getting paid. I didn't have a job. So if I was doing Lomi, because I was trying to get my license, I was doing it off donations just to make it by. And my parents gave me a couple years. Okay, if you're on this journey, 2 years, we'll give you, you don't have to pay rent. But once your 2 years is up, you gotta have to get a job if you can't make it. You know, so little things. And so long story short, I just feel like, you know, I finally have a position. I finally know what my Kūleana is. And once I got my Kūleana, to be a little bit more outspoken, I could either do it or I can keep quiet. But if people are starting to look at me, might as well be and use my position as best as I can and be a positive influence in the way that I think a positive influence is. And to me, God is my backbone. So I speak about God a lot on social media. And if people don't like it, that's at one point when I was younger, that would bother me. If people didn't like it, they would give me their criticism. Now I'm so confident I feel where I'm at and who I am. I'm gay. You have a problem with that? Turn the channel. If you have a problem with that, don't have to watch me. If you have a problem with, that's exactly what it is. It's your problem. Because now I'm not going to allow your guys' thoughts about me to make me feel and push me down and make me feel depressed, because there's so much things to be proud and happy and joyful and at peace about today. I would rather live my life being peaceful and joyful than depressed or okay, thinking about all everybody else's criticism on me.
I want to give you a challenge and see if you choose to do this or not. I want to see if you can not go into your head, not worry about any judgments, and go just only into na'au. And that's the conversation that comes out now. whatever is in there that needs to come out, that wants to express itself, however, in this space with no judgment, just to fulfill that Kuleana, I would like to invite that to come out. I keep moving back to it, but it's like there's no threat in here. Yeah, at least in here. I want to feel your spirit that I see in your stuff that you do when you're just relaxed and off the cut and so on, right? There's nothing to beef with. What wants to come out? That's what I want to. I don't know if that's too much, but
no, I mean, thanks for pushing me because it made me really think because
not thinking, no think.
Well,
it's just only like whatever's now.
I just feel that it's
like it coming out. You watch when your hands do this. That's what I'm talking about. Here to here.
Oh,
here to here.
I was criticized so much for talking with this.
When you're doing this, it's like from you going like from here. Like I'm not beefing with you on that. So it's like I want to see like when Pono would talk about being versus doing and so on. I want to experience if you're open just to being. You know what I mean?
That's why I think it's a challenge for me to come up with that answer, which I'm thankful for asking me.
It. We can sit.
It's just me.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm at now is I'm not trying to think as much. When I was an artist, speaking of Na'au, so my company is called Na'au Vala'au Designs. Oh. And the original idea was Na'au Talks, because if I'm going to design something, my challenge to myself was not to erase and was just to allow whatever I feel the design is inside of me to just express it. And then I'll have a story to complement that design, no matter how ugly or nice, or if you didn't even know what you're looking at, it was that there's a story behind it. And now that's kind of how I see myself expressing. And I would say this is probably within the past few months, less than a year, that I feel that there's this turning of a page in a chapter in my life. And it's not necessarily where I'm at in my life physically, but it's that spiritual sense where I really don't care. And I finally know what that feels like. And I'm enjoying that peace because I know what it feels like to speak and then worry about what everybody thinks and speak. And I'm speaking because this is what I feel I'm going to just express. It's me. It's my expression. If you don't like it, that's okay. It's not my problem because I'm still going to continue to do what I'm going to do. That's why I feel like being open about who I am, my sexuality, the issues that I deal with, I'm just going to be open about it.
So tell me a story about that then. Talk to me in story.
Well, being gay was one. I was always a closeted gay, never open, and only recently, and it's because of the news, being out, being public, talking about Māhū, doing Māhū episodes. I need to accept myself more so then I can turn around and tell these stories without this barrier between me. Like, I don't want to be a hypocrite when I'm telling stories. So everything that I'm learning and I talk with people, I do internalize it and digest it and try to see how it impacts me and what I can take away from it. I mean, if it's being Māhū, why not accept it, talk about it? Because there's somebody out there who's going to listen to you.
But is Māhū actually gay, or is
That's
Māhū
a
just,
whole nother
or is the
conversation.
piece that like Māhū? My understanding from that Kumuhina video that I saw online with like the cartoons was that it was just Māhū can embody male and female at the same time, but there wasn't necessarily sexuality. Or am I wrong, or
No,
what? Like,
well,
how does this work?
So there's so many levels that it's still foreign to me, and I'm slowly becoming more aware of it. But I mean, there's Māhū in the context of Māhū. What does it mean, homosexual, in a dictionary context?
What does it mean in Hawaiian terms? Like Hawaiian back in the day, like what would it mean then?
Well, back then, I think Kumuhina, the way that she expresses it, seems to be the more generalized understanding, where it's kind of like a space in the middle of the two. It's definitely not in this Western sense, you're gay, you're straight. It's different than that. So that's why when you talk about Māhū, Kumuhina, she told me, you're not Māhū. So I'm like, oh, okay. But in the dictionary, yeah, I'm Māhū. But in this context of what Māhū is, I guess in today, Māhū is like, marry, like much more prominent and expressive. And to me, she's more so like, you're a gay guy. You don't have that Māhū character. So, I mean, there's so many different layers now when you look at it.
So what kind of definition is she using? Is she using like today's definition then of that, or like the one that she's showing inside the video?
In the video, but I think just like, I think in more of a current way when we say, oh, you're Māhū, I don't fit that context. That's cool with me. But yeah, it's such a realm that I'm still foreign to. So I'm really fortunate because I've been a lot more outspoken. Even I've been doing Universal Show Queen, co-hosting that for the past few years. And that's like the largest drag competition.
Oh.
First of all, never talking in front of people was never my forte. Now it's becoming so. A God thing, because I don't feel I have the ability to speak. But what if I don't think about that and I just talk? Apparently people listen. But if you were to speak in front of a room of Māhūs, that's the one room that would rip you a new, and they would not be afraid to heckle you and come
So
back
how
at
was
you.
that experience?
It was liberating, really, the first time, because I got through it and they asked me back. And
So you felt like accepted?
I felt accepted because, see, one thing when I first started to do much more public speaking, I felt like you had to have a niche. You cannot just talk, because when you look at other people, they're either comedians, they're singers, there's another thing that carries them. So when I first started this, I tried to be funny. And I thought it was like, okay, I could do this. I'm not a comedian. Because I realized every time I try to say a joke, it flops. But I'm humorous, I think, when I'm just being me. And one person told me, you're very quirky. And at first that really threw me off. Like, I take umbrage to that. But then after, when I'm thinking about it and I look at what quirky means, and I really just kind of sit down and wonder, what kind of person am I? Like, yeah, I am quirky. I am even flamboyant. I had to look at what flamboyant means, because when you hear flamboyant, it sounds like, oh, you're gay, like you're flaming. But when you look in flamboyant, because Prince Kuhio and King Kalakaua was known as a flamboyant person. If you read, it says flamboyant person. So I'm like, oh, was he gay? When you read into it, you're very personable, you're very expressive, you're very friendly. And, so even just words that we think of today, to actually take the time to learn about it. And that's my thing, is I just want to learn. I've been an open sponge, and there's a term Maya Angelou shares: when you get, give; when you learn, teach. And these are little things that inspire me. So, I mean, connecting it back to Tutu, as I get older, then I just come across these little phrases or little things that connect with me. And that's the next thing, that it's like a little food that helps me to be inspired to go to the next step. I have a really bad problem of forgetting what the question was.
I think initially it was talking about like the definition piece of Māhū. And you said you did episodes on it. Then I didn't see those, but like, what would be the most important things for someone to know, like that might be surprising, or I don't know, what's the most important things people need to know about that?
That there's so much more than what we know. And if we just act like we know everything, then we're being as foolish as foolish
in terms
can
of
be.
Māhū?
Oh, Māhū or anything. Yeah. But I guess in terms of Māhū, though, I feel super privileged to be in a space that can kind of understand both sides. I've been with girls, I've had ex-girlfriends, I've had ex-boyfriends. It's so cool that I can, I just feel like, why enjoy just one when you can enjoy both? And jokes aside, it's more so I have much more of a connection. Like, I feel much more vulnerable, but vulnerability is becoming to be my strength. And I mean, even just calling out yourself being Māhū before anybody else can call you Māhū, saying that I have depression and I deal with depression before somebody else wants to rag on me that I have depression, I reclaim that power.
Or like
I'm not giving
in
that
8
power
Mile.
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I even just told that to my dad the other day, because I'm to the point where I can have gay jokes with my dad. Like, it's a baby step process. It's always been, but we're so much down that road now, because it's just something we continue to malama and take care of and try to strengthen. But I think being able to understand both sides, I think that's a gift. I like to think of it that way.
So the episodes that you're doing, was that with Kumuhina or is that something else?
Was with Kumuhina. The first one I did was in our second season, I believe. I was with Kumuhina and Lena Robbins Tamure. The second one, because I think we've done 2 so far, but I even just speak with Kumuhina, we are in this conversation of how we can continue just on that topic alone, future conversations. But I think that's kind of where I'm at now, is I want to have these uncomfortable conversations. And I'm seeing it as another niche, because when I start Aloha Authentic, we start off with this bowl of poi. And Tutu would always say that this bowl of poi, when it's open on the table, we don't speak negativity, because that negative energy will spoil your food when you're eating dinner. And in this sense, we don't want to spoil the conversation. That bowl of poi was literally just to have another element of a fun story inside the show. But then as we continue to step into more evolved conversations from where we started, Māhū, speaking down at Kauai Ha'o Church with Kahu Ken Makuakane, how can you be a Hawaiian and a Christian at the same time? Because I know a lot of people who would criticize and has a lot of negativity about both sides. Or military. We went to Kaneohe Marine Base on Mokapu, spoke with their commanding officer, and acknowledged the military has not been the best hosts in our land. My mom was born and raised right over there on Kailua Beach, and We have Mokapu and the Ulupa'u crater behind here, which is a firing range. This was all in her backyard. My mom can't come on top of here. She can see it from a distance, but my mom cannot come on base. My dad was working on here, and during his lunchtime, he went to go fishing. He was told he needs to stop fishing or get off base. Like, okay, how are we going to have a relationship with the military, with history sharing the bad things you've done here, and even now not allowing Hawaiians to even be on their own land? Like, that's a conversation we need to have. Well, the officer had that conversation with me, and he acknowledged, yeah, military hasn't been the best host. But okay, how can we...
you went to go talk story with him?
So we talked story with him.
You mean after, like, it was recent?
This was last year.
Oh.
Yeah.
So your dad went fishing and he got kicked out, and then you went to go talk after?
Yep. And I know an uncle
and you
who
did it on camera or no?
It
was it like an episode or no?
This was
you
an
just went to
episode.
go talk? Oh, yeah.
This was an episode.
Okay.
A full episode. And it was the commanding officer of Kaneohe Marine Base, which the idea then is I want to talk to every Marine military.
He wasn't the one that
installation.
kicked them off, though.
No.
Oh, yeah, right.
So these are just stories I was sharing that happened when
Yeah.
I was, young kid time. But I even know an uncle, and I shared this with the officer. I know an uncle who was surfing out at one of the surf spots that is apparently only reserved for active military. By the time he got back in to go to the showers and rinse off, the officers were already there to arrest him. And he had to go in and got arrested for surfing at a spot that was only reserved for active military people. Give me a break. Like, that's the angry Hawaiian inside. Give me a break, bruh. That's our culture.
And what did they say?
He eventually got released, but he had to go through the whole process.
No, what did the military guy say?
Oh, yeah. So there are some ways you can do this and that, So that was the thing.
You mean come as a guest?
Well, one of the things he had responded to me after, we actually met up afterwards. He contacted me, oh, can we have coffee? I just want to talk story about moving from here. Where he said one of the things that came from that conversation that he had done up to that point was tell his team how to fix the website so that they can access the page of how locals can get onto base easier. Because it's like, how come we can't come onto base? Well, safety in terms of the military, we have to protect people who are coming on and make sure we can vet them and everything, which I get it. But, just the context of military versus Hawaiians in Hawaii. How can we move forward so we have a better relationship moving forward? That things like digging up our barrios to put a golf course, and now these barrios are still in a container someplace or wherever they may be, waiting for them to be reinterned back into the Aina. Like, that's an issue. Families are still angry over that and trying to fight for that today. So we have to acknowledge the pain and the hurt and facts. People don't like to talk about the illegal overthrow. Well, I'm sorry. I will be more than happy to talk to you about the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom from American and European businessmen. The fact that how many times were ships facing the islands and the Hawaiian people and the king threatening to shoot them down if they weren't relinquished their power or whatever. That has happened. History shares that. We can either ignore it and act like it didn't happen, or we can talk about it and see how we can move on from this pain or use this pain to find a better tomorrow. That's what the bowl has started to turn into, was this symbol. When this bowl is here, we can only speak positive, but we can still have an uncomfortable conversation. Hopefully that we all, if you're listening at home, can be inspired somewhat to understand more their side, understand our side, understand what relationships can we build so we can both live copacetically tomorrow and still be able to be a Hawaiian in Hawaii. You can still do whatever you need to do, find the balance.
So the bowl's only in your TV show, or you also take that bowl
The bowl is,
otherwise?
we take the bowl all over, but in life, for me,
Yeah.
the bowl is always open when I'm in public. When I go home,
Like you bring
behind
them, you
closed
like
doors-
bring the actual bowl and then
Oh
in
no,
public?
actually
Oh.
bring the actual bowl, but just with that, the essence and the mindset of what it represents. When I'm out in public, it's real cool because people will come up to me in public now more often every single day and recognize me. And I think that's so cool. The first thing I try to force myself to say is just thank you, Jesus, because that's a humbling thing and I don't want that to get to my head. But it's real cool to know that people see the Kūleana in me that I feel I have in myself. So anytime I'm out in public, I don't want to put a fake face on, but when I'm in public, I have to be just in the best behavior. One thing about me, you'll see on my social media, I don't like to swear. I don't like to have anything negative, name calling, putting other people down. Like, that's not an Aloha response. So I delete that off. I don't want that on. I don't express that. Do I swear? I swear a lot. I have much more of a vulgarness to myself, but I don't like to use that when I'm setting the example, when I'm in the public face. But I definitely do have that to me. So whenever I'm going, that bowl is always with me because I can be having this conversation with you any place outside, and I want to make sure that I'm coming across and, I don't say anything bad or anything wrong. So that bowl, in essence, is always with me, but physically, I don't always carry it around with me.
So, other than your tutu, who would you say has been the most influential person in your life?
My parents, my mom and my dad, for sure. Because growing up, I've always looked at them as my dad is the manly man, my mom is the woman. So on my leg, I have this tattoo where I designed this, but it's shark teeth, which is my dad, and then fish scales, which is my mom. And then there's three of us, my older brother, me, and then my younger sister that are just woven in between. And going and stepping through life, I've always felt like I have that balance. Again, kind of like being in the middle. I know what my dad does to be a manly man, and I know what it looks like to be a manly man and what that does. And I'm glad that I can go out and I can be a man. And I can see what my mom does and the things that she does and the gracefulness and, the balance of Kūleana again. And Kūleana, for those who may not know, Ku is that energy of man and strength. Hina is that essence of femininity and gracefulness. And to be Māhū is a balance between Ku and Hina. You're literally that's how I look at it, is you're in this middle of this spectrum. And you have the gifts and the strengths of both sides, and you also have the weaknesses of both sides. Going back to it's a God thing, in my mind, God says you work on your strengths and play to your strengths and allow me to strengthen your weaknesses. And growing up, I always felt like the weaknesses of me always hindered me. And that's what kind of led to the depression. And it just felt like I'm less than. I never was more so. Growing up now, it's more so like I know that my Kūleana is my strength now. Storytelling, that's my strength. Talking story, that's my strength, which is really fascinating because I'm not a talker. I'm a very quiet person. I was very shy. I'm a good listener. But now in this phase of my life, I have the anointing right now. And I say anointing because I can wake up tomorrow and God says, this season of your life is done. And I wouldn't know how to talk anymore. I believe that.
So if you could only have one memory of your father, what would be that memory?
Oh.
And everything else is gone.
Surfing. My dad is a surfer. And growing up, my dad always wanted me to go surfing. And I did. I was very ashamed of it, though. So I would always stay inside. Because I never was good at it. And I told this to my dad a couple months ago, that I finally kind of realized why I was very shy and ashamed. Because my brother would go. My brother was really good. And a couple times I remember one time we went to Honolulu and Maui for a Thanksgiving trip we did. And my dad's wish was for all three of us to be on the same wave together. And we all rode the same wave together on that trip. And my dad was just so proud of that. And to me, that was proud. But it was more so like, oh man, I wish I spent more time doing this. In my life now, I going surfing all the time. I told my dad, I think I'd finally realized why I didn't want to go surfing a lot with you guys. And he's like, how come? Because all the guys are really hot and I get really ashamed and I don't know how to talk. And when I'm nervous around people, to this day, when people that is very attractive, I don't know how to talk. I lose the ability to put words together because it's just like...
You're talking fine with me. What is going on?
No, you can't do that. But I mean, it's little things like it's just my insecurities. My insecurities had prevented me from doing a lot. Now, to know that my insecurities is what's becoming my strength and my tools, that trips me out. But when I think of my dad, and to know the fact that my dad and I can have this conversation, he's all cool with me now where I'm at. It was never like that. It was very hard to get to this point. But to me, that it's just thanks for being that dad. Like, you're such a man, but to know that your son may not be just as much of a man, that just makes me proud, just to know that you're accepting me for who I am. But my dad surfing, that's the number one thing I think of when I think of my dad.
And what was the turning point in that relationship where you
Well, the time when I came out to my parents is my first Merry Monarch in 2012. After that, one night I got a DUI. I got arrested. 3 months exactly on the date following that, I got my second DUI and I got arrested. My mom had to bail me out the next morning. And it was all because it was just emotions that led back to a guy. And when my mom bailed me out, she was like, what is going on? And there was nothing else to lie about. There was no fake answer I could give. I was just, well, it was about a guy. It's like, I knew that. And my mom said, we already knew you were gay. I'm like, okay, well, how come you didn't tell me, kind of a thing? But so anyway, so I got out, and when I got home, of course, I had to have a conversation with my dad. How come you got arrested and all this stuff? And then I told my dad, and I just said, oh, it was just about a guy. I forget exactly what I said, but the only thing he responded to me was, I don't want to see it. And that was it. And it caught me off guard because I thought we were going to have this whole kind of conversation. He was going to disown me and all these kind of things. But it was all in my mind. It was all in my head. So when I told my dad, it was that. I don't want to see it, but it wasn't something like I could have an easy conversation. I could be open and joke around with you. Like that was back in 2012. We're in 2025 now. And only now am I starting to have a little bit more of jokes that I can pass on to him or be up and up with him. Like, yeah, I didn't go out surfing because the guys are hot and I was checking them out. And if if I mess up, they're going to be looking at me and I'm all ashamed. And then my balloon got popped kind of a thing. So be able to say that to him. And then at first he was just like, oh yeah, okay. Like I shouldn't have asked kind of a question. And then I went up and I just shaked his hand and he was like, what? Why are you shaking my hand for? I was like, well, because I can finally tell you this. I couldn't tell you this before. And then he was like, bro, you know why I always went surfing? And I knew what he was doing. Is like, why? To go check out the hot guys? He's like, yeah, to check out the hot guys. And he was just joking around with me. But even just the fact that he joked with me, like that was like, okay, cool. We're cool. So it's little things, but that kind of an experience, why not share that with everybody? Why not express that? Because if I'm going through this, and when I met with other Māhūs, in like a board or meeting, someone had told me this, you represent a whole realm of men that are not loud, that are quiet, that are more straight looking and acting, that they don't know how to, break that boundary and take that next step. They cannot really follow drag queens and people who are much more expressive. That's not them. So you actually represent and are being a face for that space. And to me, that means a lot. Like if there was somebody that I could listen to when I was younger, I would, and that would be helpful for me. And if I can be out here and I can still be happy and I can still be joyful and I can still have a job in front of the public and people still want to criticize me, but you can still see that I'm happy, then maybe you can find a way to get out of your depression pit and you can find a way to be happy. And then you can also break down your boundaries and not worry about what anybody else thinks. Because it's taken me 36 years to get to this point, I might as well turn around and use my platform and share it. That's kind of what is the inspiration for me to keep going and going is at this point, if I don't do it, who will? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to kind of leave it out to chance that somebody with good intentions may come and use this space and do it better than me or, with the same intentions. Or they may come in here with bad intentions and screw everything up. So are we going to sit back and point fingers? Or are we going to stand up and take that responsibility and that Kuleana and we be the leaders and not a follower? And that's kind of how I think of it as a paddler. You don't want to be a follower. If you have 6 people in your outrigger canoe and 6 people are in their mindset, they are the leaders, then you have 6 leaders in a canoe rather than 1 leader up in the front and 5 followers behind. And that's kind of my mentality. Be a leader. Don't wait for somebody else to do it.
Mm-hmm. And then what about your mom? You could only take one memory.
My mom is a superhero. That's like literally like X-Men superhero. There could be times where I'm out or I'll be in college. My mom calls me, what's wrong? And I haven't talked to her for a couple of days and I'm just going through something and she has this motherly instinct. And that motherly instinct has come about so many times. But from being a powerful woman, she does everything. My mom is a saint for sure. I mean, she's just so graceful. That's why when I look at my parents, my dad is like the manly man. My mom is like, in my mind, like she's what a mother is and continues to be. I still live at home. At first that bothered me, but now as 36 years old, who's still struggling to pay my student loans and everything, I'm going to live at home as much as I can because I have my own space. It's totally fine. And I think outside of Hawaii, that's kind of frowned upon and looked down upon to be living at your parents' house at 36 years old.
It's expensive here.
It's expensive, but
why not?
I don't have a problem with that at all. Mom still cooks dinner. Mom is a mom. And I know that my mom still loves to be a mom. My brother has moved out. He lives with his fiance and we see him every so often. He'll come by, we still bring him over. We allow him back in the house. No, so for me to be home, it's nice because it's just, they're comforting. So for myself, when I have kids, that's who I want to emulate as being a parent myself. A little bit of my dad and a little bit of my mom. And I am so excited. When my turn to be a parent is here, I think I'm going to be a cool mom, a dad and a parent. But I can only say that because I can see between the downfalls and the ups of my parents' relationship. They've been together 45 years or something, almost 50 years. And I've seen the lows and the highs from them. And I see how many relationships nowadays, how divorces and how short relationships can be. My parents, my mom was always one, like, no, divorce is not a choice. It's just not a choice. And just to see how they were able to get through so much and for so long, that is inspiring to me. So my parents, aside from my work ethic, just inspired me to who I am. They continue to be an example that I strive to be one day.
What would be a memory that you have with your mom? You could take one, and that's it.
Oh, with my mom, I'm a total mama's boy, so that one's a hard one.
You only get one, and everything else gets wiped out.
Mom? Well, my mom, till this day, she will work for me. If I had the opportunity to pay her that she could be my manager or whatever, my mom would do that. Like when I was on my entrepreneurial season, even, Olelo channel, when Aloha Authentic first started, my mom would come down, because if I didn't have somebody to help to learn how to operate the computers and everything to film us, they had an Olelo person there who can do it. But if I didn't have anybody to learn from them, I would have to pay $50 to produce the show. But if my mom came along and learned along with them, then it was free. They waived the $50. And then when I did craft fairs, my mom is very adamant. She never wants me to do a craft fair by myself anymore. I mean, I would do everything alone. And craft fairs is not an easy thing. For people who do craft fairs as a full-time thing, good on you, because it is so hard, and I have so much respect for them. So when my mom's seeing me do all these things by myself, she's there. And when I don't tell her I'm having a craft fair, she's angry at me, because no, you need to have somebody. She's always willing to drop what she's doing to come and help me. And that means so much, because I know for a fact, no matter where I'm at, if I don't call my mom because there's an issue, my mom's going to have an X-Men kind of a superpower feeling, and she'll contact me. And I can say for recent, that's my one memory, that even to this day, as a 36-year-old, my mom is always, always asking if I need help.
What kind of work do they do?
My mom growing up was always a dental assistant. My dad was always a heavy equipment operator. So he always did construction and big trucks, which is funny because my dad never, ever wanted us to be in construction. I don't think we even had, like construction toys when you're playing in the sandbox and stuff. We never really had too much construction, big trucks and stuff, because my dad never wanted to influence us to be a construction worker, because you can be much more than that. So
Except now that's like the high-paid job. You know what I mean? Like, bro, it's hard to get good contractors.
Yeah. But I thank him for that, because then I think it just allowed me to know there's so much more than what just my parents were doing. That wasn't all that you can do. And that we want you to do better than us. That was all between both of them. I want you to do better than me. And I think that's the thing that for parents in general, like I want my kids to have a better life than me. So to know though that would have taken me to this position I'm in now, talking in front of everybody, being as open as I am, I never would have fathomed that. But yeah.
So what if you couldn't do anything you're doing right now, yet to start, at this point, it's like, I don't know, those industries or whatever are just gone. What would you do?
My biggest fear, because my first job was Dae in Kailua as a bag boy.
Oh, dating you, huh?
Yeah.
Dae.
Hey, at least it's not Holiday Mart.
Yeah.
I don't remember Holiday Mart. My parents always talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But my second job was 7-Eleven as a sales associate, or whatever the title was. I always feared that if I didn't get a job, I would have to result back at working at 7-Eleven, because I wouldn't know what else to do. I don't think I'm good at one specific thing.
What if you could create something that fit you? What would that be?
I would travel the world to learn and to do cultural exchanges with other indigenous peoples. I love culture and history. So I just think it's so cool when you can share your knowledge with others and in exchange learn their knowledge, because I believe there's a healing element when you learn about people and the similarities and the differences.
How come you don't do that then?
I see Aloha Authentic and my Native Arts and Culture Expo, the company that I kind of took over and rebranded. I have a lot of these components on my table. Some of them I'm much more engaged with now. Some of them are on the back burner. But I just feel that I'm just on another stepping stone to what my next phase of my career is. And I feel between the expos that I used to put on and the relationships I've built, this platform, the recognition of my face and who I am now is getting me closer to that opportunity to be able to travel and share my stories. And with the people, it's not me giving everything that I know, but take along our community with us. Take some dancers, take some weavers, people and experts in their realm. Let's create something where we can take all of us and we can travel, because then it gives not just that healing element that we can learn from one another, but it gives us purpose to our practices. And how can we expand our practices outside of just Hawaii? Because I think when we're here, we only can do so much.
kind of feel like you already have what's needed to make that one happen if you really wanted to.
I think at this point it's really
You
just
could just get
money.
sponsorships. You could potentially get grants.
Yeah. I'm really bad at the business side. So as a business person, I was a really bad business person because people come up, oh yeah, here, you can just
have
take
your
this.
mom help you.
Just take this. Yeah. I mean, it's stuff like that. Like once I can fine tune things, mom is going to be my first employee.
She shouldn't even need to be your employee because she probably doesn't mind. But she could help you on that.
Yeah.
Because to do that, especially depending on whichever countries you're going, you probably get hosted.
Yeah.
So your costs are pretty low. If you're doing a media-ish style, then you can have a travel rig, which is not too expensive and light.
Yeah.
You could do that for pretty inexpensive.
I've been brainstorming and I have people that have planted seeds in their brains. And my producer with my show, we've been having either just other show ideas that is in our future.
There's just one organization, Pacific something. I met them at one of the Hawaii Business Magazine events. And they do grants for stuff like this.
The one thing about my mom is she doesn't know the business lingo, and that's not her realm either. Then, just finding those right people. And I believe it's all in God's timing when the person who can help me with the business side and take care of that side that I can trust to help me with that and move on. But as of right now, my mom and I, we took a nonprofit startup class at the Patsy Mink Center for Business and Leadership, which is a great organization to check out if you're interested. Mm-hmm. But even just taking that class, both of us, a lot of the information just goes straight over our head because at one point I wanted to create a nonprofit and do my own business before this news came about. My mind just does not comprehend that realm. So
the Small Business Development Center could help with that too.
Yeah.
They get free.
They have so much. I mean, so many. Yeah. So that whole realm, and there's so many things, so many people out there.
I mean, you would think Commitment
provide.
Schools or OHA or somebody got some grants specifically for this.
Yeah. I never understood sponsorships and grants and stuff. I've always wondered, how do people get so much money? And when I had attempted...
Are you friends with Na'alehu, Anthony?
I worked for him for a little bit. I used to intern at OEVTV when I first graduated.
What about just doing it through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I think going back to relationships, it's all about relationships and who you make friends with. And that's why going back to my business mentor, don't ever burn a bridge. And
that's like that one is kind of simple. You could actually probably do that this year, even listening to that.
Yeah. Well, that's my, if you have money.
I don't know Christine getting mad at me because she's like, oh, took our weather guy or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, it could also potentially be partnership with the station.
Yeah.
Because all you really need is a sponsor to run ads on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The more I'm spending time in this media realm.
So maybe CNHA would be the sponsor or something like that. You know what I mean? And then you go around. You could do kind of a lot.
That's why I think it's the time. And I'm so stoked that I have a position in this community. I have something I can contribute back. And I know that the community is liking it. And I told this to Christina actually just yesterday, a couple of days ago. In more recent months, before people would recognize me from doing weather, I was sent this statistic. 70% of viewers tune into the news to watch weather. That's the number one viewership for the reason why. So people knew me for weather. But now, more so the comments that I'm getting and people coming up to me, acknowledge me, I seen your Aloha Authentic. Mm-hmm. So now I'm starting to see more recognition from Aloha Authentic aside from the weather. To me, that's a big praise report because that means the momentum of what we do and the content that we're sharing is out there. And people are starting to, I have a story. I just got one, a church on Molokai, which I'm going to be contacting. I think it's a great idea. That's turning like 160 years old, where they're going to have to break it down and call it Pau for them. I think you would be the perfect person to talk about it. Thank you for seeing the responsibility that I carry now. Like, I would love to do that. Mm-hmm. So I think that to me is really cool that I do have a role. In media, it's your mind and your imagination is pretty much your limit of where you can go. And with the station being a huge component to media and my position now, I wouldn't want to leave that. Mm-hmm. That's I even told Christina, I always want to have my foot in the door. Even, I don't know what my future holds, but I would love to be able to dive deeper and elaborate more on what Aloha Authentic can be.
Maybe it's even just like a tour of duty almost, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a few months, you're going to go do this thing, you're going to have it sponsored, it's going to run primarily on KHON or something. You know what I mean? Then you maintain everything.
Well, that's what I mean. Your imagination literally is the limit. The challenge on our side is how do you paint the picture of what the final product wants to be, what you want the final product to be? Because I realize when you pitch an idea, you really have to come up with everything from start to end to pitch the idea rather than, I have this idea, let me just throw it to you and see what you think.
Just make one pilot.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And there's just so many things that the problem now is, what do I focus on? But I'm also in this space, and I told this to my bosses too, I'm starting to take my off time much more seriously. So I'm not going to be working overtime as much as I used to be. I'm not going to be doing everything and saying yes to everything like I used to. No disrespect, and I apologize, but my peace and happiness and joy has to be number one. When I first started, I never went to the beach. I never did anything. It was always work, work, work. And then all my Aloha Authentic stuff usually falls on my days off. So I'm always working. So getting a day off was very far and few between. But now, I'm sorry, I'll get back with your emails in the next couple of days. I'll text you back in a little bit because I'm doing me time right now.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to be as happy and peaceful in my space, my stories, my work will not be as best as it could be. So now there's going to be a balance between not working and working because I have to be selfish with myself. I mean, I've been doing it for a few months already and I'm loving it. I'm much more excited about my work, but I also feel like the response, and as active and as bad as social media can be, and being stuck on this, always trying to post, there's a balance because it could be too much. And I catch myself, and they have those things, oh, your average screen time this week is like 8 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So where's the balance with that? Because the more I share on social media, the more feedback I get knowing that it's engaging with people.
Like, how engaged is your audience?
It depends on what I'm posting.
I think the reason I'm asking is that maybe the audience, you could crowdsource some of your pilot even or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's so much. I mean, just yesterday, so I started this new company. It's a tour company called Now and Then Tours. And I had this idea for a while already, been working on it behind the scenes. But my auntie is visiting from California. So yesterday I was like, what are you guys going to do? She said, oh, we're going to go Bishop Museum. Oh, I have an idea. Because my mom didn't want to go really. She wanted to kind of just relax. Why don't we just go tour? I'm going to do these tours. Can I sample this and test this tour on you? Like, oh, yeah, let's do it. So he spent all day yesterday driving around and kind of mimicking a walking tour that I'm going to do. And it was so cool. And just kind of taking back from whatever I'm sharing here, what's the next step? I'm on TV. That's cool. But I don't want to just plateau here. I'm on social media now. That's cool. I don't want to just plateau here. Let's do a walking tour. Another person who influenced me for a short amount of time was Uncle Joe Recca. And he was a Waikiki historian. He would do walking tours in Waikiki. He has since passed. Nobody else that I know is doing walking tours. And it's just another element because I have much more in terms of this business where I want to go. But this is just the first step. And to me, I don't want to just stay still. I need to keep doing something. Let's find out something new to do. Let's find another way to get this information into people's minds and an engaging way, and it's just keeping active and just trying to keep going with it.
So was there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel you would like to talk about?
Not really, because the main thing for me is lately has been really just revolving around Kuleana. What is my Kūleana?
Kuleana or Koho'ia?
Oh, Kuleana.
Right? So
Yeah.
do you know John DeFries?
Yeah.
Yeah, so John DeFries is telling me about Koho'ia, right? Which is
What's your choice?
like voluntold by the universe to me.
No,
It's kinda,
your
right?
yeah.
No,
Okay,
no
okay,
choice,
okay.
brah. No choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both. then,
Kuleana
of
is
course.
almost like you can choose to accept this or not. Almost. You
Well,
know what I mean?
I like to think of Kuleana because I didn't know this until I read the dictionary. Well, not read the dictionary, but I looked in the dictionary. That when we say Kuleana, we think responsibility. So
Yeah.
fast. But in the dictionary, privilege by Tutu is stated before responsibility. And I always look at it now like it's my Kuleana to be a storyteller. It's my privilege to be a storyteller. It really is. It's a privilege because I'm always a student. I'm always learning. And for somebody, I just love history. I love to learn. And it's so cool that I can be in spaces where I can speak to these people that I don't know if I would be in a capacity to speak with them outside of the news. Or I could, whatever it is. It gives me a front row seat to be able to hear these stories. But I think a lot of people tell me their stories because now they know and they have trust that I can turn around and share it and continue the stories. But Kuleana for me is what I feel because it's my privilege to be able to be here. It's my privilege to be able to talk to people. It's my privilege to know this knowledge because knowledge is power. I believe that. And people always say, okay, well, you know all this history. How is your history relevant to today? I don't know. That's the goal. How do we keep our history relevant to today? Why do dancers continue to dance old style dances? Why do we learn how to speak Hawaiian and learn the other dialects of older ways to speak Hawaiian? I mean, there's different ways we can speak. Why are certain words chosen over other words? It's because we need to find it, one, to keep it alive, but we only can keep things alive if we can relate to it, I feel. Like nobody is interested in a conversation until they can be in that conversation and have some type of relationship with it. So if I can find ways of taking all these stories that I have this feeling, a lot of what I have is feeling, and it's hard to put into words what that feels like. But if I have that feeling, there has to be a point to it. And that's my na'au. And that's why it's hard to express it sometimes. It's because how do I just transfer this feeling to you? So then you're just inspired to want to share the right stories, to speak the right words, to teach our people, or even to speak up when someone says something wrong, to speak up and say, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And be okay with saying that. Because if nobody says that person is wrong, that person is confirmed that what they're saying is right, then to only go around and continue to share the wrong thing. So my job is, I feel my Kūleana, my responsibility is to continue our stories. My privilege is being the person to be able to do so. And koho'ia, growing up, you're voluntold to do a lot of things. I would say that I'm chosen to do this because it wasn't something that I was just like, oh, I want to do that. It's just something that naturally I got led to. And I naturally got onto the news. It wasn't my choice. I wasn't intending to get onto the news as a job. How I got onto the news was somebody had spray painted Prince Kuhio's statue in Waikiki one Halloween night in 2017. The video of him spray painting the statue was sent to me, and I was told, please don't say my name, but do with this video what you want to do with it. And I was already doing my street videos very simply. It was more a social media post, but my business mentor helped me to start a website. And I was putting these videos on the website very cheap. I didn't know what I was doing with it. But it turned out to be a blessing because when I got that video from the boy spray painting the statue, I sent that along with my website to every single email address I can find on all the news websites. And I just told them, I think that if there's more Hawaiian education integrated in newscasts, this may not have happened because that boy would have known who Prince Kuhio was. And if he lived on Hawaiian Homestead, he would have known it's because of him that he's on Hawaiian Homestead. And we would all be much more educated and connected with our home. And it would be a win-win-win for everybody. The station would be looked upon as caring more about the communities, learning more about themselves for free. And I get a job because I didn't have a job at that time. So it would be a win for all of us. And KHON was the only one who responded and said, that's a good idea. Let's try it out. But at that time, it's a God thing. They just so happened to start a new morning broadcast. And there was a new component to that broadcast that they just started, and they were looking for content. And I just, lo and behold, contacted them at the right time. That was the beginning of November. I spoke with them. Started January, the first week of January is when I started to do Aloha Authentic street segments on Aloha Authentic morning news. And it was just voluntary. From March to around April, in between there, I got contacted. Our weather position is coming up. We want you to apply for it. So I applied for it, not knowing anything. I told him, I don't know weather. I don't know anything. And well, just do it. Ended up getting the job. And that's how I got into the news. It was totally untraditional, unexpected, but it was my intentions and it was just me. And why did I contact them on the email? Because that's the only way I knew how to contact them. I could either do that or I could have vented on social media. Oh, screw this Hawaiian, blah, 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 blah. That would have done nothing. But because I didn't want to be a follower, I wanted to be a leader. I took that, and the only thing I knew how to do was go on the website and find whatever people I can contact. I don't know who I was contacting. I could have contacted the janitor for all I knew, but the message got across and I got a job. So I like to think nowadays that I just go with the flow. I don't know what I'm doing. People ask me what I'm doing. I have no idea. It's a God thing. And that's why I keep saying it's a God thing, because by my own skills and abilities, I do not believe it qualifies me to be in this spot. But I believe I'm qualified to be in this spot because God is giving me this opportunity.
You know, for this area like Manoa, what's like historical stories or so on, significance of this kind of area?
Oh, this is part of Waikiki.
Oh.
When you think about that, when we think of Waikiki, we just
So the Ahupua'a is Waikiki?
So the Ahupua'a is Waikiki. It gets confusing, and it kind of goes back to the point that there's not just one right answer. You know, stories differ from families and sources. So at a certain point in history, we had the Great Mahele, which is the land being divided up. And there were a lot of changes, boundaries were moved at that point. But now when we look at it, the Ahupua'a of Waikiki is this land section that starts all the way up in the mountains of Manoa and extends
like
down
by the falls or where?
Just from the tip top of the mountain. So in Ahupua'a, if we zoom out, every island is broken down into large districts, which is called moku. So we're in the moku of Kona right now. It's fascinating to know that Oahu has its own kona. When we think kona, we're thinking Big Island. And other islands also have a kona district. Not all, but some other ones do. So we're in the larger district of Kona. That's the moku. Within that moku, it's broken down into smaller sections called Ahupua'a, and then some. Ahupua'a are broken down into smaller sections and then smaller ones. But the idea of an Ahupua'a system was the islands are broken down into like pie shapes. So it's not broken horizontally, they're broken vertically. And it's broken down that way so that no matter what population or civilization or community are within those boundaries, that they have everything that the island has to offer from mountain to sea, everything that is needed to sustain life and survive. So Manoa is a smaller land section within the larger Ahupua'a of Waikiki. So that starts from the top of the mountaintops all the way down to the shore. And the one kupuna even told me that boundary actually extends about 2 miles into the ocean. So then that Ahupua'a is also encompassing marine life and everything that the aquatics have to offer. So when you look about Manoa, this is the streams and the water that flowed from these valleys is what led into Waikiki, leading Waikiki into being a once wetland and all taro patches and fish ponds. So what we look at Waikiki today, that is complete opposite of what it used to be. Nothing taller than a coconut tree. And Hawaii State Archives has beautiful pictures to show this. Nothing taller than a coconut tree. You had 3 streams that once flowed through Waikiki into the ocean, all coming from up here in Manoa. And it fed a lot of the lo'ikalo, the taro patches, the fish ponds. One story shares that the taro patches and its wetlands were able to sustain, in Waikiki alone, approximately 100,000 Hawaiians. That's crazy when you think about it. 100,000 Hawaiians in Waikiki alone. Like, that is astonishing. And to me, it's hard to love Waikiki as it is today. It's a love-hate relationship. I don't like Waikiki, but I love Waikiki because of its stories and the history that it shares. If we forget that history, Waikiki would just be a tourism mecca. But if we know the history of Waikiki, if we know the history of Manoa, it is so much more.
So what's the significance of Manoa then?
Manoa, well, it depends, in what part of history, because Manoa also had, I think there was a sugar plantation here, but I believe they grew like...
I thought it was dairy or something.
Yeah, they had all different kinds of farms. I think cocoa was one, rice, if not I'm mistaken, was another one. So it has gone through its phases. And yeah, it's fascinating. I'm trying to think of what the name Manoa means on the top of my head, but I can't remember. But it's interesting because if we actually take the time to be aware of our surroundings, we learn so much. And again, going back to now, don't be a follower, be a leader. Be a person that goes to find out those stories. Why are we always going to be reliant on who posts what, and that's what we're going to take as facts, which isn't always true? Let's be the people to go out and actually learn something. I hated reading until I found out what I love to read. And now, once I'm in a book, it's addicting because, oh, did you know that Hawaiians actually ate dog? I didn't know Hawaiians ate dog. I thought that was a Filipino thing. But then I was doing a story on Namahana
Like they
Street.
raised it?
So apparently, so I don't know the details, but people are saying that's where we get poi dogs. So poi dogs was raised to be eaten. I guess that's their story.
With poi?
I don't know. Probably to cover up the taste. But I was doing a story on Namahana Street in Waikiki. Namahana comes out to be one of King Kamehameha's wives, who, following his passing, she was talking story with this Russian explorer, and this is written in his journal or his log. He was asking her how she's doing. And she was saying, oh, everybody's all sad because the king passed away. But the women are actually very happy because the kapu system is now broken. Women don't have to be reserved to eating dog flesh, that they can eat pork. And once I read that, I'm like, wait, we had a Filipino neighbor growing up, and we always joked around that the Filipino is the one, watch out, because they're going to eat your dog, not knowing that we're the ones eating dog too. Like, that's fascinating. Or chicken fighting was another thing. Growing up, I thought chicken fights was a Filipino thing. Well, apparently chicken fighting was a popular sport within chiefs. That what they would do is they would get their chicken, they would put it over a flame to kind of like get it riled up. And then there was a guy who would get a hand of a dead man attached to a rope, and he would swing it in the crowd. And that's how he would get people to come together to start the chicken fight. Like, that is fascinating. A hand of a dead man?
Why would you use that?
Then you just start to connect the dots or start questioning. I wonder, why did the guy die? Then you start reading something else, and it's just crazy. And to me, that has to be relevant. Not saying that we need to get a hand of a dead man to start a chicken fight, but the power and the value of that knowledge has to mean something today. What does it mean? I don't know. I go into a school. I was talking to Wamanalo school and sharing this. The hand of a dead man, a chicken fight. And they're just like, well, oh. I'm like, yeah, but there's value to this. I don't know what that value is, but it's something I love to share.
How about in the streets in Manoa? mean, I'm asking because I'm in Manoa.
Yeah,
But
I know there's an Oahu Street.
yeah, I think it's Wahoo Ave.
Oahu. So I mean, Oahu itself, because I wanted to do a story on that, but it takes a while to figure out how to build a story around it.
Mm-hmm.
But Oahu, there's different stories of place names. I got heavily criticized on this story, which is fine because I like to share that this isn't the story, it's just a story. And why not we know more than less? Well, this one story, it came from a report, and it was stated that this was more so in their family, not more common knowledge. The names of our islands help to tell a story between this battle of our gods. And the name Oahu, Kane is one of the gods, and he's like the more supreme god. And there's some stories that share that he also went by names such as E or O. And Oahu is O as in Kane, Ahu as in shrine. So Oahu is the shrine of Kane. Kauai, Kawa means battle. E is Kane, so the battle of Kane continues. Molokai, molo to be twined. Kai, E. In this story, it's referring that E is Kane, so the entanglement of Kane as they continue their battle. Lanai, lana is to like rest. E is Kane, so it's where Kane rested during his battle. So there's these little things that story is fascinating. But then I come across another story that was, I think, written by either David Malo or Samuel Kamakau. The name Oahu was actually a man who lived in Waianae, and his descendants named the island after their ancestor. So, I mean, that's already two separate stories of how this island got its name. But again, why not know more? I think it's fascinating. And when I turn around and share these stories, I want to make it a point to share both stories, not just one, because I think one is more right than the other, because both of them have life. Both of them have value. Why do other place names get its name? That same story, there's a Wailua, not a Waialua, but a Wailua on Kauai and on Maui. This same story shares that Wailua was another man from like Eva or something. His descendants in the future had moved to Kauai and Maui, and the places they settled, they named it Wailua after their ancestor. So I was like, gosh, that is so cool. But again, what value does it have today? I don't know, but I'm on that journey to try to figure it out and share it with you.
What did you learn as the most important things about the Pu'uhonua?
Oh, that was a learning experience all of its own because I didn't know very much.
Especially stuff that didn't make it into your video.
That Pu'uhonua isn't just a place. Pu'uhonua could be a person. I don't know if that was included if we cut that part out. But Pu'uhonua could be women or, certain ali'i and chiefs themselves was a Pu'uhonua.
For someone who doesn't know what's a Pu'uhonua, how would you explain that?
Pu'uhonua is a place of refuge. So it's a place where if in old days, if you broke a couple, if you broke the law, and you were able to get to this Pu'uhonua, this location, before getting caught, you were safe. Because my understanding, it wasn't a place where you go to run away from your wrongdoings and getting out of being arrested or killed, but it was like a rehabilitation. So you go there, the people there will accept you in. You go through this whole process to fix you, to realign you, to get you back to what your Kuleana in society is, and then they will relinquish you back into society, so then you get back to that goal. I mean, if you think of that today, what do we have today? We have rehabs. We have these other places. So is there something in the traditional sense of a Pu'uhonua, which we may look as a rehab today, that we can be influenced by, that we can adopt, that we can integrate into our life today to be a little bit more Hawaiian rather than Western or, haole in that sense? Is there things that we don't need to reinvent, that our kupuna were so knowledgeable that how can we integrate that today? That's what I learned from Pu'uhonua, because I really didn't know what it was other than just a place to run away from or run away to. But it's something like that could be a concept that we can find a way to integrate to our society today.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like, but I mean, for me, what is my job? Can I just start the conversation? And for everybody who's watching it, you're inspired, maybe you can pick up the conversation and take it to the next level. So again, you have a role in this just as much as I have a Kuleana in what I'm doing in this community of ours. You also have a position in this. And that's what I feel is, once I tell you, you're no longer ignorant. Now that you know, you can either be willfully ignorant, which is your fault, and then you're going to be part of the issue, or you can take up the Kuleana because now I have passed that Kuleana to you. Now you have a responsibility to share that along and to continue that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for a number of years now, I've been thinking about like the 21st century Pu'uhonua. Like, where can you actually go that would be considered a safe space to be able to heal? And then come out and be accepted back into community without judgment and,
Yeah.
things like that. But even on a
Yeah.
short term or in a conceptual piece, I consider it's like Pu'uhonua or Manoa, like the safe space in Manoa. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, the street over there is called Pu'uhonua.
Really?
Yep, just up the street.
That's another one then I could do. See, every time I'm driving too now, I'm very attentive to what the street names are. I've never paid attention to it before. But yeah, I think it could. And then a pu'uhonua for what? You know? I mean, when we think we're running away from breaking the law, you killed somebody or something. But then, I mean, mental health is an issue, that kind of a mind space, going in and just sitting down and have conversations, safe space, unintimidatingly, sit down. So it's like we can have different levels of it. And see, I mean, even just the fact that you have that thought, like, I wonder what we can do. That is my goal. I'm never going to give the answer. I don't know the answer to a lot of the questions that I speak of. But it's hopefully, if my mind is rolling, I can inspire you. And then again, create the ripple effect. I believe there's always a way to do something. There's always a way. It's just taking the time to figure out what that way is.
Who ran the Pu'uhonua? Like, who's in charge? Who sanctions it?
I think back then, everybody had a specific role to play. So I know in the priestly realm, in kahunas, there are different types of kahunas. I don't know exactly which type would have been, but I'm assuming that would be kind of their, like in your community, there has to be a pu'uhonua and somebody's just going to take care of that. I don't know. So I really don't know.
So it's not a kahuna or somebody. Maybe.
So I think kahuna, when we think kahuna, there's a lot of misconceptions too of our Hawaiian words. So today, I mean, you go water park and you have the big kahuna water slide with a big tiki looking thing. That's not Hawaiian.
I thought kahuna was like keeper of secrets.
Kahuna literally is an expert
in
any type of profession. We typically think more of spiritual and priestly. So a priest is a kahuna. They're the expert in the spiritual realm. But you had kahuna la'au lapa'au, experts of Hawaiian medicine, experts of hula, experts of whatever that space is. So a kahuna could be really of any realm. But in specific for spiritual kahunas, then you have black magic that they call kahuna ana ana. But then you also had another type of magic that wasn't so black, but more source. Reading David Malo and all these other books and people, it's really like you have to expand your mind. Because even I was just talking to my mom. My mom was saying, my challenge is I'm not very imaginative in my mind. Like she's very like that. I just told her, you have to keep your mind as an open book.
Yeah.
Accept it to be true to some point, and then allow stories to influence you and, inspire you. That's just me, but I know that not everybody looks at it that way.
So was there anything else about the Pu'uhonua that might be helpful?
They were all over the place. It's not just Honau now. I think that's the only place that we kind of talk about now. I don't think they call it as much anymore, the city of refuge, as it used to be termed that. But here on Oahu, there were Honua as well. And one of the stories they were sharing was that chiefess, she had something to do with pigs. I forget the whole story. But taking care of the pigs for this one person, I think, had something to do with if they made it over to that chiefess. The chiefess was the pu'uhonua, and what she ended up doing was making that rule breaker the caretaker of her pigs.
Yeah, he was stealing from her.
Something like that.
In
Yeah,
the story, right?
So it's just like, wow, man! Like our society was so different, and I think for me, it's just nowadays we're so proud to be Hawaiian. But what does that mean? I mean, you can be Hawaiian, bouncing up and down, ready for scrap. That's what it means to be Hawaiian. Give me a break. But at the same time, you're not an aloi, you're not learning Hawaiian, you're only doing whatever you're doing that's totally outside of Hawaiian culture. That's not being Hawaiian. So I think as much as it is as I'm trying to perpetuate, for me, I'm also trying to define what does it mean to be Hawaiian? Because I can tell you that doesn't look like it is. In Kailua, it's the same way.
What's your definition?
My definition of being Hawaiian is my Kuleana to this land, really. Because, I mean, people would say, oh, but being Hawaiian was never part of the conversation before, which it wasn't. I mean, you look at King Kamehameha, John Young, and Isaac Davis, two haole guys who were on his side to fight, and it was because of them that he was successful in his conquest to establish the Hawaiian kingdom, because he's the one who had the haole weaponry. And John Young, if I'm not mistaken, was made into a Hawaiian chief. So you had this full-blooded haole guy who then was, because King Kamehameha gave him the ranking of a chief.
Wasn't it Kamehameha? They attacked the ship and had like the two guys left, and they said, "Okay, either we're gonna kill you or whatever, or we'll make you one chief."
I think that was.
Was that him or no? That's
I think that was Isaac Davis, because one of the guys, I forget the story, but yeah, he was left behind or something. And so then there's even stories like, did Kamehameha, were they really friends, or did he capture him and make him his friend? There's so much stories where to me, we can either question or I can just read and then move on to the next thing. Yeah, it's so much. I love it. Sorry.
I was just wondering on that because
I'm not a really good interviewee. I'm a good interviewer. People asking me questions, I have a hard time.
what's that
realizing-
necklace? The other necklace you got?
This was also a lei for my tutu.
Oh,
So my tutu gave me a bunch. She has this whole box when she was younger, which I'm assuming was like when she was
like for holotry
50,
kind or
60,
what?
70 years old. I don't know exactly what this one was because she has two of them.
Looks like those things from a holotry almost. Or
Yeah.
something, you know?
But she gave me all these lei. And one of it was a pili nut, which I don't think this is the pili nut. But she would always talk about this pili nut. And I think it's wherever the old police station used to be. I know there's that building there now. I can't remember what it is. But there's a tree that grows there. And she said that tree gives off what is called a pili nut. And I just always remember her. And it's something like this because she had another one. It was a single that she just made it herself and she put one. It kind of looked like this, but I don't think it is. But she would just make all these little, she was very handsy. She'd always done stuff. So she always make lei, she crochet a lot. She would make these little scrubbers, which I had asked her, do you mind if I sell this? Would you be okay if I sell this? And she's like, oh yeah. She made these scrubbers out of, that fabric that has the holes in it, whatever it is. But she would make these flower-looking things, and that's what we grew up as scrubbers and clean our dishes. She would sell them, I think, like 10 cents a pop or something to the hospitals. They were the best scrubbers ever. But she would crochet that, and she would make it. I asked her one time, Tutu, if I make it, do you think I could sell it? Would it be okay? She's like, oh, yeah. But making it was just the hard part.
Yeah.
But they're little, and to me, it's just, what if you just call them Tutu scrubbers? They're the best scrubbers ever, and they last forever. And yeah, really good. But Tutu always had little things. She makes like coconut shells ones, that's like this. It's really odd, random things. She always just liked to play around with stuff. She has to always do something. She would always be picking weeds in her yard.
She have a favorite saying?
Oh, she was always just like the older she got, the more funnier she got because she started to be a lot more vulgar. But when growing up, she really wasn't. Aloha Po always was one thing we would always go say. Aloha Po. When we would go stay at her house, there's this prayer, the Lord's Prayer, that was like crocheted into this picture frame thing. So I remember always kind of going through that before we'd go sleep. I never really saying, but when we were growing up, when we were eating dinner on the table, we never was able to drink anything. I remember that. Every time we would eat, we were never able to drink anything until we finished eating because if we would drink, we would just get drinking and get full off of the drinks. Tutu always had the bowl of poi. Tutu loved sour poi. I don't know how. I can do half sour poi, but the point where there's penicillin all over the top and you just mix it in, she loved that. I could not do that. Yeah. Aloha oi, aloha po. There wasn't really one thing that she would say.
Okay.
I think if I were to say something, I'd be, oh yeah, Tutu would say that. She would always say she feels with her hand. She always, how are you feeling with my hands? She's very simply that kind of a humor kind of a thing. You see the waves, you driving by, you see the waves? Yeah, go wave back. That kind of a, oh, you're so cute, Tutu.
Okay. I think we're coming about it. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say or anything we missed?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity for sharing. And hopefully, I could be all over the place. But there's always a kuleana and a responsibility in what I'm sharing. And I'm glad I have the opportunity to share it there and share it here with you as well and your listeners.
Well, I appreciate it. I want to acknowledge you for all the good work that you're doing, educating people and sharing your spirit as well as your kuleana.
Mahalo.
Yeah, and thank you.
Thank you.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.